looked in the little kitty's house and their eyes, and they're like, you're like, ah! And then it's just all over.
Wheel and a 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 wheel.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, we are back with another episode of It's Not Complicated. I'm Jennie Williams. I'm the senior pastor at Central United Methodist Church, and I'm here again with my two favorite co-hosts.
Hi, I'm Reverend Chase. I'm the executive pastor at Central United Methodist Church.
I'm Virginia Brown. I'm the college pastor and Wesley director just off the U of A campus.
And we are excited to dive into some wild books today.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all have ever
Lions
seen
and statues and cows. Oh my.
And honey tasting rolls of paper. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And, if you've ever just watched like The Matrix or just like been really tired and, what was that one movie? The
Inception.
No, it's Labyrinth. Have you seen Labyrinth?
Yes.
It's,
Like with the puppets?
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. So get excited for today. Now, as usual, we are reading the Bible. So that means there are
What? We've been doing that this whole time?
this whole time, you guys. I know. I can't believe it. But it has some biblical topics that may not be for every ear. And so if you are with people that you would want to double check that beforehand, just please be mindful and we will do the same. All right, let's get going.
Woo!
Woo-woo. So we have a lot to cover today because we've been gone. Well, we've missed last week. So we are going to be covering 2 weeks worth, and that includes the entire book of Ezekiel.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So I think instead of going chapter by chapter, I want us just to kind of focus on what the book of Ezekiel is and represents. And then also there's what I noticed this time reading through it is how much connection it has to what other book in the Bible.
Revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you thought Revelation was the trippiest book in the Bible, Ezekiel's here to say, hold my scroll. So stupid.
That's terrible.
So bad.
It is true, though. It's bad. I mean, it's wild. I shouldn't say bad. I
It's
should
very
say,
descriptive.
yeah.
We sang a song in high school. Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the air. It was crazy.
Is that wheel and a wheel and a wheel
Yes,
and a wheel and a
yes.
wheel and a wheel and a wheel and a wheel?
No.
It's
You
like,
don't know that
it's
song?
like around
No.
and like it's a mass choir, and then it feels like
Wheel and a
you are
wheel and a
Ezekiel
wheel and a
going.
wheel and a wheel and a wheel and a wheel and a wheel.
Yeah.
And you're like, I am Ezekiel right now.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
So Ezekiel falls in line with Isaiah.
WTR, what the revelation? Revelation. Never mind. Sorry.
WTR.
Yeah.
What the revelation are you talking about, Chase? So he is a prophet. He's a prophet in the 6th century during the Babylonian exile. So there's a lot of similar material I noticed to, in particular, Jeremiah. I just felt like I was like, did they have access to each other's writings, or I guess obviously the Lord was giving the same messages to the different prophets.
Yeah.
Or Ezekiel's like, Jeremiah's gonna be my ghostwriter. This is good.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh,
what
hey,
about
let's just
a
change it a
wheel
bit.
of fire?
Yeah, but here's the deal. Ezekiel was like, this content from Jeremiah is pretty good, but it's a little dry. Let's add some let's add some moments where we're assuming that Ezekiel is dropping acid of some
Yeah,
sort.
because I want a creature with multiple faces.
Yeah.
Human, lion, ox, and eagle. That sounds pleasant.
Who
And
doesn't?
divine smackdowns. Do you smell what the Lord is cooking?
No, I hated everything you just said.
Sorry.
Okay. Wait, it's been a bit, y'all.
Welcome back.
We're still we're re-stretching that
Yeah.
podcast muscle today. So one of the things that does need to be named about this book is that it's an apocalyptic book. There are it's hard to describe what that means because we don't have apocalyptic literature in our modern
Right.
bookshelves.
Yeah.
But other apocalyptic books in the Bible are there's pieces of the book of Daniel, which we'll get to next, that have apocalyptic nature. And then, of course, the most well-known book is the book of Revelation, with the revealing, if you will. And this apocalyptic genre is all about symbolism. It is telling a real story, but it is using unreal elements to get a point across. So they would use this apocalyptic way of writing for a couple of reasons. First, to make it more interesting and exciting.
Yeah.
But second, they would be able to tell a true story, but in a very veiled way, so that if the story got in the hands of the wrong person, the people they're talking about, the empire leadership, then it wouldn't put a target immediately on their backs. They were able to speak about people
in coded language.
That's exactly right. So that's helpful for me because once again, reading through the prophets is just wild. It is also feels very harsh sometimes.
Yeah.
Of course, we talked about this in our last episode, which the audio wasn't great. So if you didn't make it all the way through, we talked about how, Israel, it wasn't like they were just like casually ignoring God. Like they were like sacrificing humans and children in particular. So it was pretty bad. So that did put a little bit of a different context for me about how angry God was. He's like, how could you're supposed to be this light to the world, and here you are doing the worst things that the world has to offer. Anyway, so we'll talk about those different pieces as we dig in. And but it kind of starts off right off the bat wild.
Yeah.
Like chapter 1, we talk about this, I guess, vision that that Ezekiel sees, right?
This crazy figure on a throne.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then moves on to the 3, are they cherubim or are they seraphim?
I don't know the difference.
Okay. Well,
I don't.
it's like they are, I think they're cherubim. What does your Bible say? Is it chapter 2?
Is it 2? I don't see it.
Oh yeah, maybe it didn't say. Maybe it just said creatures, if I remember. Well, they have how many faces did you say they had?
4.
4. They had 3 sets of wings, 1 to fly with, 1 to cover their faces.
Yeah, and then
one to cover their feet.
yes.
Their feet, but feet is always code for like something
Oh,
else.
that makes so much more
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't want to see
Jenny,
their
come on now.
crusty dusties.
Feet.
No, that's not the.
That's literally not feet. But yeah.
Or is
other
it?
parts.
It's a winged loincloth. I get it now.
there you go.
Okay, all right. The Bible, just say what you mean, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, he sees all this, and it makes you think, what was Ezekiel smoking?
Yeah. Especially, can I jump into something in chapter 3?
Yes, please.
Okay, when this creature is like mortal, excuse me, it says, eat what of the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth and he gave me the scroll to eat.
Yes, yum.
Why?
Did it taste bitter or did it taste?
No, actually,
it tasted sweet?
it was sweet. Yeah, so I opened my mouth and he gave me the scroll. He said, okay, yada, yada. Then I ate it
Blah, blah,
and
blah.
in my mouth, it was sweet as honey.
Oh, nice. It's the word of God.
For the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
No, I mean, it's the word
It's
of God.
delicious.
It's so sweet, like honey.
Yeah.
We just had some honey
Oh
baklava
my God.
in Turkey that was literally life-changing.
I bet it was
felt
amazing.
like this apocalyptic experience, if I must say so.
Like you were eating scrolls from
I
scripture.
was eating scripture scrolls, pondering why in the world are there these beings with wheels next to them? And this is what gets me.
Oh, yeah.
What are the wheels?
I just think
The wheels within the wheels.
I think of
it's a symbol of about to move, like chariots going.
have you seen Return to Oz?
I don't know. What?
No.
Yeah, it's the Wizard of Oz, but it's the second one, and it has.
Is it with Timothy Chalamet?
It is not. This is like 1985. And there's these creatures called the Wheelers, and they are terrifying.
Okay, so-
they have like wheels for hands, and they like go around. It's terrifying. Anyway,
The 80s movies like that were always
Creepy. I wonder if
terrifying
I can find a
because
picture.
the animatronics were next level at that time, but they were just terrifying.
They were so bad that you watch it today, you're like, really?
It's like when you went to Chuck E. Cheese's and the gorilla's like playing. This is like
the
eyes don't
eyes
blink
broke.
at the same time.
this is a children's
Oh
movie.
no!
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
bad.
think I have seen that.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a Wheeler. They're super scary.
Maybe we can pop one of these pictures in the
Yeah,
feed.
'cause
So
you'll
wow.
need to see it.
Yeah.
It's pretty insane.
Anyway, so
So there's a lot of
Ezekiel,
symbolism
tons
going
of
on.
symbolism. Do you want to say more about that?
Well, we're going to get to it later.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about it later then. And then we get this moment where Ezekiel is told to lay on his side.
Yes.
Okay.
This one is why.
On a bed of what?
Dung. Well, he's cooking. No. He's not laying on dung.
Oh.
He's cooking his food over a fire of dung.
Well, actually,
That is horrifying.
that works. So actually, you can make
What?
you can make bricks out of dung,
Yeah.
and you can
I don't
use it
want
as.
to eat my, whatever you would cook over a fire while you're laying on your side for a year over dung. I don't want it to be like
This this has the nice
dung
it's-
infused.
smoky flavor.
No.
This
There's
is
no
dung
flavor to
smoked.
it. It's actually there's a way to bake it and to get all the impurities.
Why
and
do
it's
you
a
know so
charcoal.
much about poop?
It was a TikTok. I don't know. I was like, this isn't why.
I don't. Okay, Phew, this could go real quick. I'll stop. But why is it left side for 390 days?
Yeah.
And right side is only 40 days.
I mean, you got to roll.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
bed
but-
sores. Can you imagine?
Yeah, but like,
gross.
he would have bed sores.
Yeah.
That sounds rough.
I'm sure there's some symbolism there, the right and the left, and like maybe the northern and the southern kingdom or something like that.
could be.
But who knows? And then he has to shave his beard and his head.
Which this goes back to that.
Oh, but three
ancient-
piles.
Yes, he has to
You
keep his
got
hair.
you got a piles.
This goes back to the ancient Jewish practice. Remember when they had to shave their head after growing it out for so long?
like the Nazarites.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I also thought like he must have had a really thick head of hair, because if I shaved my head and divided it into three and put anything on a
very
scale,
small.
the scale would not move.
Mine too.
I'm like,
Fair.
there's 3 strands over here.
very fine hair.
Yes. Anyway, sorry. Maybe it was dreaded or something like that. I assumed, did everybody just wear dreadlocks?
Another was struck with a sword. Which who is the weirdo striking a pile of hair with a sword? And then the last is scattered to the wind.
So my favorite part about this is that the Lord says, and all of Israel will smell the burning of the hair. And I'm like, yeah. Have you ever smelled burning hair?
It is not
gross.
pleasant.
It's nasty.
Yeah.
Gross.
Usually this happens to
my
me
God.
when I'm trying to do something with fire and and it like singes, or occasionally when I was learning how to use my hot hair tools, I leave it in a little too long.
Yeah.
And you get a little burning. It's gross.
My first instance was as a United Methodist child acolyte, and my friend lit her hair on fire in the tiny little narthex, and we're like, oh gosh.
Oh no.
And so
Have you ever done
was
like
fine,
a
but-
sin burning thing? So like for Lent or ash, and you like write it on the piece of paper and you light it on fire in the sanctuary. We've had some times where it's like, oh, it went up a little bit too high.
Oopsies. Did it turn on the
the fire.
No,
sprinklers
It
is
was
what I was
just
thinking
like
of.
this is where is the fire extinguisher, just in case.
Oh my gosh.
But we need to know that for our sanctuary. Where is the fire extinguisher?
Where is that?
And this happens a lot between the Greek text and
They
the
take the Hebrew
Hebrew
and
text.
move it over,
There's
yeah.
there's just different translations. Like some of them.
What is this word? Oh, here it is.
Yeah. And our gospel writers were usually using the Septuagint.
Boo.
So it's fine. But so some of the connections mentioned earlier between Ezekiel and Revelation, there's this talk about a battle of Gog and Magog, right?
Oh, Gog and Magog. Okay.
Magog.
Gog and Magog.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, you won't believe it.
Oh my God.
That's what OMG means. Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
This is kind of, if I understand this correctly, I think the Gog and Magog battles are meant to represent like a huge war, like battle to end all battles. And we see that in the Armageddon
Oh,
battle in
Medina, all of that.
Megiddo.
Yeah, Megiddo.
which I
Yes.
think Megiddo is the Greek version of Magog, but I could be wrong about
Oh,
that. I could be wrong
cool.
about that. But anyway, so there's just still some similarities there. But my favorite part of Ezekiel, I have 2 favorite parts of Ezekiel, actually. I took a class on Ezekiel in seminary. What?
Nothing. Are we at this part? Yes. Okay. Go.
So I took a class on Ezekiel in seminary, and we focused on a couple of different parts about it. But one of them was, of course, Ezekiel 37, which is the vision of the dry bones.
Oh, yeah.
Bones and bones and dry bones and bones and
That makes sense why he was smiling like that. Okay. All right.
Dry bones, now hear the word of the Lord.
You know, it's amazing how many of our songs came from this random book, right?
I love this story.
Good art inspires, I guess.
This was like the favorite, this was the favorite when I went to Pentecostal church. This was the favorite.
Oh, they love this one.
I mean, it's like,
yeah.
Speak to the bones. Speak.
They're dry.
Rivers. Okay, anyway, sorry. There's a whole story behind that.
Oh my god.
But it is great. And here's what's, I think, interesting. We talk about this vision of the dry bones, but really everything that Ezekiel sees in this book is a vision.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, there's some really drastic things that God says, I'm going to annihilate all of your people. They're all going to die. I'm going to starve them out. Mm-hmm. I'm going to destroy them. And I realized that in the same way that this is an allegory of what will happen or the hope that Israel has, that is the whole book. It is an allegory. Mm-hmm. Like God is not actually starving people out.
Right.
There are going to be people who suffer whenever the empire has its way with them, if you will. But that's not God orchestrating all that. God is essentially saying, you broke this covenant.
Yeah.
And now you have to deal with the ramifications of that. But anyway, so Ezekiel, the Spirit shows Ezekiel this huge valley, and in the valley is basically a field of skeletons, right?
Yeah.
It represents all of the dead of it. It actually just represents Israel, the people of Israel.
You mean there wasn't literally a valley of bones?
There was a valley. They were really there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you're right about that. And God says, this is Israel. This is the house of Israel.
Yeah.
They are in wasteland, right? They're in exile. They don't have any hope. They are dead. Their way of life is dead. Their community, their connection to the land is dead. But God says, I'm not actually done with them yet, right? And so God says,
you're not dead. You're about to be alive. You're not dead. You're about to be alive. No?
I thought you were going to say, speak to the bones.
Oh, prophesy over them. Call out to them. In the name of... Well, Jesus isn't here yet.
In the name of the Lord.
In the name of the Lord. Get up. And then it gets... Oh, this is the coolest part. Like, the bones begin to...
You know, they rattle. It's like grrr, like rattling bones.
I just think of like really bad CGI
back together.
And then like the veins start growing back, and then.
But my favorite part is that they get back to fully infleshed, if you will.
Aww.
That's a terrible word. I apologize. But it works.
It's like the opposite of when they open the Ark of the Covenant in the Tomb Raider. Not the Tomb Raider.
Yeah, it just kind of goes back.
Yeah, it just goes backwards.
Their face melts back up.
Yeah.
But then the people of Israel are like, we're still dead. Breathe. We
need some more.
We need the breath or whatever. You know what I mean?
This is a beautiful story, though.
Yeah.
Like, I love this. Like,
it's so powerful.
When do we feel like we're down to our bones and there's nothing left? And we do things to like build ourselves back up, but it's not until we have the very breath of life of God in us that, ooh!
That's good.
That's a little Pentecostal moment, too.
Yeah,
prophesy. Speak to the bones.
I'm telling.
Speak to the breath. Do they say that? Breath.
Take off running.
So God says, now prophesy that the breath of God, remember breath is wind, also spirit, that the Spirit of God is back into the people and they are alive again. I think that is, as terrifying as that vision would have been, amazing.
Yeah.
Goosebumps. You know, our Chase and I started here at Central on the same Sunday, and this was the passage that I preached on.
Good.
Yeah, and we had been, our denomination had been through a really challenging time, and this was just a way to say, like, catch your breath, man. And women and people of God. Anyway, so this is Ezekiel essentially saying, you're going to come back from exile. Things are going to come back. Life will come back into this community and into these people. And then, of course, when we look at this as Christians, we see this as a powerful foreshadowing of the resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even ancient Jews who lived before Christ, they had an understanding that there would be a resurrection. Some of the traditions did anyway. I know the Pharisees believed in a resurrection. I think Sadducees did not, but the Essenes, they did.
Yeah.
So there was this understanding even before Christ that God had the ability to bring life from death. So anyway,
it's good stuff.
But there is a lot going on here.
Ezekiel proclaimed liberation for ancient Israel.
Yeah.
Christians see that liberation in the resurrection, and Hollywood found The Walking Dead.
Nice.
Ezekiel inspired all these different things.
Yep.
Oh, there was a guy in that show called Ezekiel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah. Have you all watched the new it ends The Last of Us on? It's not new. It's starting second
Is it
season.
a zombie thing?
But they're like mushroom zombies. It's fantastic.
The only one I've ever watched was the one where they go. It's like a spoof on zombie movies, and they're like,
yes, I saw it. Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, Shaun of the Dead.
Wait, are they coming out? When's the second season?
Soon, like a month.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It was really. It's
really good.
That's creepy because I feel like that could be real.
Yeah. Mushrooms,
fungus.
I can't deal.
So anyway, back to the Bible, the word of the Lord. Last thing I want to talk about with Ezekiel is that there is such a connection to Revelation, and I think I knew that before this reading, but having just done that Revelation study last fall.
We're currently doing it at Wesley.
Yeah, and then rereading this. And this was the part in my class that we really studied. The whole scene where the city is being reset, and then the river that runs out from the city.
Yeah.
And the river is symbolic of the life of God being in the city. And in Revelation, you have almost an identical scene where the new heaven and the new earth is created, and then the New Jerusalem comes down. Remember?
Yeah.
And you get all the parameters. I skipped through some of the parameters of the city. I know it's important, but
There's a bunch of cubits.
Yeah, lots of cubits. So I'm just like watching. I'm thinking about forearms laid out,
my
side,
cubit
end to end.
is ready. Yeah.
So my cubit's ready.
It's ready to measure.
I mean, that's how
right
I measure
here.
for stuff at the house. Like, I'm like, I need a shelf. It needs to be about.
It needs about
This
a
long.
cubit high. Right here. Sorry.
I got a 5 cubit wingspan.
That's right.
Anyway, so and then in Revelation we have this beautiful river that's come. It's a river of life. The tree of life is planted by the river in Revelation. That's where God lives, and God's light shines and cannot be extinguished. And I just thought, this is why I was like, oh, Ezekiel is really doing what Revelation is doing. It's telling the whole story of God's work of salvation. And even more, it does talk obviously about the realities of Israel in exile and them coming back to the land, but it's so much more than that too. So it makes sense to me why John of Patmos would have used this as a reference.
Yeah, Patmos was a learned man.
One thing I thought, and I didn't do any. One thing I thought was that I didn't do any research onto this, so take it with a grain of salt. But sometime between the exile and Jesus' time is when. Nope, I'm wrong about that. Sometime after. No, when did synagogues? Yeah, that's right. When did they start using synagogues? It was
after the temple was destroyed.
It began in
exile.
in exile.
That's right.
Because they were away from where they could
That's right.
worship. So they built a place to pray and to.
But do you remember where the
stories.
synagogue was always located?
On the outskirts of the city.
By
The river.
The priest's house.
By the river.
Oh,
It had to be located by living water, which is what
because
is
of
the
the
running
mikvah?
water. Because of the mikvah.
mikvah. Yeah.
And just because of, I wonder how much of it was because of this vision of Ezekiel.
Yeah.
It just had to be natural. Well, it could have been funneled in. There were some places where they funneled in the water, as long as it was.
Yes, it had to be living water.
Yeah.
But the reason I say that is because in Acts, when Paul meets Lydia in Philippi was such a center for the cultic worship that there were no Christians there. Right. There were no Jews there. There was no synagogue there. So the Jews that lived there, where did they meet?
By the river.
Down by the river. And that's why Paul
by the
went
river.
to the river that day, because he was meeting at the makeshift synagogue. And that's how Lydia got baptized in the river.
It's a beautiful little creek.
It is. It is. So anyway, I just
Yes.
wonder if this influenced that. Yeah.
All right. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to dive into the book of Daniel.
Chase, did you write that out?
No. Where
my
lions
goodness.
don't eat people, kings go terribly insane, and dreams aren't just weird, they're world-ending prophecies. That's a great introduction.
Well done.
Great job.
No notes.
No
James.
notes?
No
Really?
notes. Yeah. So there's a lot going on in Daniel. Speaking of apocalypse,
There's
right?
some great names in here too.
Oh,
Sorry,
man,
go ahead.
the
I know they're
names.
top notch.
Look, I know several people out there that are about to have babies, and so I'm not saying you could pull like a fourth quarter, swap out, but there.
Belshazzar.
I'm thinking Abednego. Nobody never ever would know how to say your child's
That's right.
name. Betty for short.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, there are some lions in here.
I think I remember that about
Good.
Daniel. I think
There's a big old gold statue,
of course,
and there's a furnace
and a vegetarian.
and some vegetarians. And you know how you
There's
know
no
if someone's a
lampstand?
vegan?
You don't have to. They will tell you.
That's right.
Yeah. Did I steal that from you? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
I was playing off what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, all good.
I made a joke and it fell flat.
Well, we weren't listening to you. What was the joke? Do you want to
There's
read?
no lampstand.
Oh, no more lamps. No lamps.
That's all the joke.
That was it. That was it.
okay.
Is that a joke? Was it funny?
Mom and Dad are fighting.
She says that a lot. Okay. So who was Daniel? Who was he?
He little shepherd, wasn't he?
That was David.
Oh, close.
I was going to say, what? I don't think so.
Almost.
Daniel and a couple of his buddies were taken into exile to Babylon. And he was able to live there. He had gotten to be a part of this group of wise men, right?
Yes.
Did they select him? How did that work?
That's a great question. Let's see here.
So he's part of this group of wise men, and the king I thought this was really interesting. I had forgotten that Nebuchadnezzar had a dream too.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So Daniel is part of this group, and they're the wise men, and most of them are from Babylon, but there's a handful from the exile group, the group of exilic Jews. So the king is like, please interpret this dream. And the first group he asked, they're like, we don't know what it means. We're so sorry. We're just some dudes, just like some wise guys. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, cool. Well, I'm going to execute all of you. And when Daniel finds out, he's like, whoa.
Maybe not.
He's like, listen, I don't have any special dream powers here, but what I do have is a connection to the God of the universe. And let me just see if I can tap into that, and I'll get back to you. So he goes and prays and feels like God has given him the ability to interpret this dream. And so he goes back and he requests that he have the chance. So he tells, you know what? I've gotten ahead of the story though, because we forgot to talk about the vegetarian part.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead and talk about that.
I mean, there's entire people that do like a Daniel fast.
Yes.
There's like a whole book. My parents have done it.
Yes.
Yeah. He only ate like vegetables and water for 10 days.
Yes.
And allegedly. Okay. And then he didn't want to eat the royal food. And so he was like, yeah, I'm just a vegetarian. And so are my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did. Well,
Did they get sick though? Did the other people? No.
No one got sick. I think the issue was when you had these huge feasts, there was potential to eat meat that had been sacrificed to idols.
Oh, okay.
So they were just really nervous about eating any meat. from the king's table.
I mean, it was probably safer to not during that time. Yeah.
Well, right. But it's still like that was one of the reasons Israel got sent into exile is because of idol worship and eating the meats.
That's true.
That had been sacrificed to idols. And so he's like, we are very faithful. We're not going to do that. And the guy's like, well, I can't let you starve. I'll get in trouble, which is confusing also because they are
prisoners.
I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And so, it turns out at the end of 10 days, they were looking pretty good in comparison to the other guys who'd been eating off of the, the buffet table. And so that was, that elevated Daniel and his friends whose names were
Shadrach, Meshach, and
And
Abednego.
Oh my gosh. Their original names were Daniel, Mishael, Azariah, and Hananiah, but they changed it to Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yeah, another name change here in Scripture. Yeah.
So anyway, so they're doing well. They're healthy. They're physically fit. They're working on their reps every day, and that is when we go back to the story about the dreaming, the king's dream, which we've heard this
His
before.
second dream.
No, just one dream.
Okay.
But it's very, in my opinion, very reminiscent of Joseph because Joseph was taken as a prisoner to a foreign land and he rises to prominence and power by interpreting a king's dream.
That's right.
So the king has this dream. And it's about this giant statue made of all these different materials.
Yeah.
And then there's like a separate rock that is cut from stone or something like that. And then it comes and starts crushing the
A rogue rock
just
flying around.
cut from stone, but not by human hands.
Oh,
So it's a divine rock cut.
exciting.
So, and then, so Daniel comes.
Sounds like a meat dream.
Okay. It's like when you eat too much meat and you have weird dreams. Okay.
Yeah.
They were eating meat.
He wasn't.
The king was.
Oh, Nebuchadnezzar was.
Yeah,
you
the
are
king
correct.
was. Yeah. So anyway,
I don't know, people.
It's a lot. We are really out of practice. 3 weeks is too long. Okay. So, king's dreams. So Daniel comes in and he's like, I have some bad news for you. There will be multiple empires that come after you and it will take your empire down. But eventually, yes, and I think, Virginia, you said this in your notes that there was a divine empire that would kind of end it all.
Yes, a divine kingdom crushing them all.
Yes. So anyway, so the king promotes Daniel, and then Daniel also asks if he can bring his friends, Shad, me, and Abby to come and hang out with him. And the king is like, absolutely. But the king is also inspired by this meat dream to do what?
Build a statue.
That's right. So he builds a giant statue.
Let's go ahead and do it.
Like I
sounds
like that part of the
great
dream.
idea.
Yeah.
It's about a 68 cubit statue. Cubit.
Not cubic. Cubit.
Yeah.
60 cubits high, 60 cubits wide. And in my children's Bible / mind, I've always imagined it was a physical representation of Nebuchadnezzar, but it actually doesn't ever say that. It's just probably like
I remember spray painting a Barbie doll gold for VBS illustration one time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It might have been a Barbie doll though.
Yeah.
Hard to say. So he builds this, and then he has this team of musicians, and they're just to play at random. And every time they play, everyone has to like bow down and worship this gold statue. But problem is Daniel and his friends. Oopsies! I've done it again.
Yeah.
They're praying to their God.
They don't bow down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I forgot Daniel had left at this point. He went somewhere else. Yeah. He wasn't with them.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Because it was just his friend.
Maddie, and
Abby.
Yep. So,
Shaddy, Maddie, and Abby.
So,
good gravy.
So anyway,
we're gonna do it.
So they're like, we're gonna burn them up.
You know what? I say we turn fire on in there.
So the plan is, if you do not bow down to this statue, you will get thrown in a furnace.
That's 7 times hotter than normal.
Well, they didn't heat it up yet because they hadn't died yet. And so the king was like, you know what? Turn up the heat.
So when Shad, Mad, and Mad is not right at all. It's just Meshach. Shad, Shak, and well, no. So when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego do not bow down, they get tattled on, rude, by the way.
Yeah.
And then they get thrown into the furnace.
That's
and
right.
the furnace, the guys who throw them in, they're like, ah!
And they get burned up.
They die. Yeah.
But then they're like, oh my gosh, there's people walking around inside that furnace, which I would love to like visually, what does that look like? But anyway, and so
terrifying. But they're not burning.
I meant the size of the furnace,
Fair.
not specifically
Okay.
the people inside.
Yeah,
it.
that they're
Okay.
that's a big
chimney.
old furnace.
Yeah. So anyway, then the king's like, well, crank it up, baby. You know, like throw some more dung on that pile.
I'll tell you what, they make them in bricks apparently.
Get those poop bricks quick. And 7 times, yes, they make it 7 times hotter than it was, and it kills the people who heat it up.
Wow, that's powerful.
Is it?
That sounds hot.
Yeah. And so then this time they look in and there is a 4th person
Who
in
is
the
it?
furnace.
Who is it?
Well, of course, if you grew up in a Christian community at all, everyone was like, it was Jesus.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Or
an angel.
yeah,
Or just the representation of God.
yeah.
Which we do believe is Jesus.
That's right.
But anyway, and
I
they
like
are
the pre-incarnate Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm okay with it. I don't dislike it.
Didn't have
We'll
blonde hair and
ask
blue
when we
eyes.
get there.
though.
You know what I'm saying?
Just a shadow figure.
What'd you say?
Didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. Just a shadow figure.
Oh, I don't think it was Jesus then. Just kidding.
yeah, Jesus
didn't.
looked like me.
Anyway, so the king turns off the furnace and he's like, not even a hair on their head was singed.
Wow.
Do you think they smelled like?
Nope. They didn't even smell like smoke.
They didn't even smell like smoke. Unreal. So the king is like, well, my bad. Y'all know something that I don't know. And they are saved in that moment. Meanwhile, Daniel is he's somewhere else. I don't remember where he is, but he's been separated from his buddies. And then the king has some advisors who decide they want to like ramp up. They don't like Daniel. They don't like how much attention he's gotten. He
Eats too many vegetables.
yeah. And we have a new king now. It's Darius.
Yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar has.
That's a nice name.
I like Darius.
I like Darius.
Yeah.
And so Daniel has continued to be prominent in Babylon, and the other advisors don't like it. So they craft this plan because they know that Daniel is still a worshiper of God. And apparently every day he goes by his window and prays to God, which
That's what I do.
is that what
I just sit out the window. And people walk by and they're like,
that guy's a worshiper of God.
that's right. Just looks like Daniel.
Yeah. They're like, Daniel? And you're like, it's Chase.
People compare him all the time. They're
That's
like,
true.
whoa.
It's
Same.
true. So they're like, okay, you need to do this like command, this law that if anybody who prays to anybody but me is going to die. And not just die.
Yeah.
Are we bringing out the furnace again?
No.
No. What are we
not
going to do
at all.
this
We got to
time?
do something new.
Okay, what's new?
You're going to be chow bait for some kitty cats.
Yeah.
Big old kitty cats.
Big old kitty cat.
That is like
But first of all,
a great fear of mine.
what kind of king?
My cat weighed twice what it does. Like, I'd be afraid it would murder me.
What kind of king sit here and go, you know what? That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
We should do that.
You know what? We got some lions. Let's put them in a pit.
And not feed them.
And then let's put some people in there.
What were they doing with the lions?
I
He
don't
was the Lion King.
Darius.
Oh gosh. You know, Lion King writers missed opportunity. But
I know.
anyway.
better than
Mufasa,
better
Darius.
than the Tiger King. So
Oh my
Oh gosh. So of course Daniel gets caught. He in fact hears about the edict and then goes and opens the blinds. I can see him like twisting the little rod like
Yeah, they had these.
minor pulleys.
yeah, that's right. And he prays again and they catch him and the king is like,
Got it.
no, not Daniel. There were so many other other people I would have thrown to the lions, but not Daniel. But the king is nothing if not a man of his word. And so in goes Daniel. They toss him in. They cover it with the
story.
Pit cover. I mean, they had a pit cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you couldn't get out.
Well, obviously.
So when you looked in the little kitty's house, the eyes, and they're like, you're like, ah! And then it's just all over.
So anyway,
it's my favorite story. Kitty.
No, I would die of fear. That is like just being attacked by something that big.
Just imagine it like purring and like him scratching behind there. Like,
no,
I just love it.
So Daniel gets down there and he is. The next morning comes. The king can't sleep a wink. He is so worried about him.
Feels so bad.
Not worried enough to not do it, but he's pretty worried. So he gets over there and he runs to the edge and he's like, Daniel, are you there? And he's like, everything is just fine.
Yeah.
Like all good.
I've named all the cats. They have great personalities.
This one is Peanut. And anyway, and he's like, good news. God shut the mouths of the lions and they left me alone. And so then the king is like, "Oh, thank me," because
right.
And so
Daniel gets out,
and so Daniel gets out, and then
but the kitties are still hungry.
They're still hungry. They did not have their midnight snack. Yeah. And so the man.
Let's just say Daniel probably wasn't that tasty. He was a vegetarian.
True, not a lot of meat on those bones.
He was very small. They were like, this guy.
Yeah.
Give us something better.
And so the guy who tricked the king and I think his family gets thrown into the pit.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So, Also, just a sidebar. After Nebuchadnezzar has the dream and then it's interpreted by Daniel, he takes a little break and he goes to live in the wild for 7 years as a wild animal.
Yeah. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to act like a cow. I'm just going to go and eat the grass and just take naps.
If you could be any animal in the world, it would be a cow. Yeah.
Cow would be.
You get to eat your food like 4 times before you digest it.
Hey, you get to re-enjoy it and then enjoy it some more.
Yeah.
But I would want to be like a Highland cow on a hobby farm.
No, I don't want to be a milk cow. No, thank you. No. Get your hands off of me.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Get your hands off me.
I just don't want to be branded. That'd just be weird.
Oh, they can do it now with like dry ice. Like
it doesn't hurt.
Nice.
Like it deadens everything when it hits.
We have so many tattoos. What are you talking about? Like one brand that you'd be fine.
We'll go get some dry
the
ice and we'll go. I'll make us a brand and we'll just. I've seen it on TikTok.
Speaking of cows, have you ever had taco de lengua?
Oh my gosh, y'all have got to get off TikTok.
Have you ever had taco
Yes,
de
I
lengua?
have. It's
so
good.
It is
good. What?
Taco de lengua.
Tongue taco.
Yeah.
Oh
cow
gosh.
tongue.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Well,
better than roast beef.
All right. So then Daniel has, for the rest of Daniel, it's like a series of apocalyptic visions, and there are moments. This is where we get the language of Son of Man. As it pertains to the way that Jesus uses it in the New Testament. So Ezekiel says Son of Man a lot. It's God talking to Ezekiel. And that is, Son of Man is literally human one. I mean, it means human one. Yeah. It just is supposed to, or mortal, as yours said.
Oh.
It's just supposed to pull the, show the difference between the divine and humanity. But in Daniel, it's used a little bit differently. It's used as this messianic language about the person that God is going to choose to help bring about peace and prosperity back to the people of Israel. So any other final thoughts on Daniel?
The ram and the goat. The ram and the goat. The ram and the goat. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the ram and the goat is so you have this medieval Persia, which Lydia was a part of that, which I thought was interesting because it's part of Turkey now. Mm-hmm. And the goat represented Greece. And there was a little bit, like while we were there was a little bit of Greece and Turkey kind of
competition.
Yeah. Is a good word. Yeah. Yeah. And so I was like, that's like, how far back does this go?
Yeah.
Well,
apparently pretty far. That's very interesting.
The goat wins.
Oh,
Alexander
nice.
the Great.
Yeah. So Hosea opens with God going, "Hey, I want you to marry a woman of the night."
Yes.
Yes, a sex worker. And that woman's name is probably one of, well, maybe don't pick this name for your daughter.
Is a bad baby name.
Gomer. That's her
Gomer.
beautiful
Gomer Pyle. Israel. Yes.
Well, hi, Andy.
Oh gosh. Well, hi. Oh gosh. Anyway, Hosea is it's pretty short, like 5 chapters, but it is all about God comes to this prophet Hosea and he's like, I want you to do a live action drama of what my relationship with Israel looks like. And so God says, go marry Gomer, who was a well-known sex worker in the area, and then just live that out and see how that goes. Well,
but God doesn't give up on Israel.
Right. But you see this interplay between Hosea and Gomer, and the idea is that Gomer didn't want to marry Hosea, or maybe she did. I don't know, but she didn't really have a choice. This was just the town, and that's what God said. So she keeps going back to her profession. She keeps being unfaithful to Hosea in this relationship. And each time Hosea is like, God, why are you doing this? Like, you're humiliating me. You're breaking my heart. And God's like, that's what it's like every time Israel has turned away from me. And they go back and forth and go back and forth. But it's hard to read now.
A modern lens. You're like,
it's hard to read now for multiple reasons. I'm wondering if Gomer was a temple prostitute. That makes more sense to me than just a lady who's trying to make her way in life because
she was raised that way, right? Okay.
Which makes it more sense too if she was a temple prostitute. Right. Because the problem with Israel was that they kept going and God would use this language that they prostituted themselves to other nations and to other gods. Yeah. And so that they were worshiping other gods when they were supposed to be worshiping Yahweh. And so God is using this relationship between Gomer and Hosea to say, she keeps going back to her job. That's the way she was raised. That's all she knows. And that's an act of worship in those settings. But it is unfaithful to me and to the covenant. And this heartbreak and this humiliation that you have felt is exactly what I have felt. And so that's what it is. It's a metaphor. And it is, even though it is hard to read, it's a reminder that, every single time Israel, this chosen people that God had done all of this, brought them out of nowhere, given them a name when they didn't have a name, given them a land when they did not have land. And then they kept turning away and then did really awful things. Yeah. In the name of the Lord. That was what God wanted to get, the point that God wanted to get across.
Yep.
I'm sure that this can be interpreted in a way that twists this story to let's just focus on the promiscuous woman. Yeah. Which that's kind of spooky. Well, and sad that people do that.
To Chase's point, it is about how God, even though God was hurt and humiliated, God never stopped receiving Israel back. Right. God never stopped going out and rescuing them when they would turn and ask for God to come and intervene. And so it really does highlight God's endless and everlasting love for the people. And that in turn, we know, becomes the way that God views all people. In these scriptures, this is God's love for Israel, but we see through Christ and through the New Testament that it's really God loving and pursuing everyone.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're a millennial who grew up in a Christian community in the 90s and the 2000s, you read the book Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. Yeah. And or more recently watched the movie.
The movie. I saw the movie.
Either in theaters or on Prime.
It was, in theaters.
And it's a retelling. It's a fictional retelling of this book, and it uses this man named Michael Hosea in the 1800s. He's
it's like a frontier.
Yes, type. He's a man of the frontier. He and his family.
Do I need to watch this?
You would probably like it. I don't know.
Really?
Well,
you might like it.
Okay.
Yeah. Just watch it once.
And then he finds this. He sees this woman who has been orphaned and has grown up in a local brothel, and I forget what her name is.
It sounds like Grit.
I haven't seen Grit.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Grit? What? Okay, never mind.
Anyway.
Bye.
And anyway, it's funny. I read the books like 3 times whenever I was in college, and I loved them. I rewatched the movie. I don't love it as much anymore, but a lot of people do. So.
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
And it's probably a nicer understanding. It gives it a nicer lens than
how some have taken it. Yikes.
Yeah. So that's really it. We, again, in the prophets, we keep hearing how the people have turned away from God, but God always offers hope of a new beginning, of resurrection, and of redemption. And I think that's really what we're supposed to get out of this. Of course, some of these things that we've read they will be used by the gospel writers to talk about Jesus later, to help the people understand who Jesus is. Because I did think about, particularly in Ezekiel, you have this idea that Israel will be replaced in the land, the temple will be rebuilt, and it is. But and they will have all of this, like it would be such a perfect time, and we really don't see that in the history of Israel, not as a nation. And I think that's because, well, at least if we reinterpret some of this stuff through the lens of who Christ is and was, we see that it will be accomplished in a spiritual way rather than a literal way. Yeah. And so it's really interesting, and it would be hard, it would be a hard thing to accept that God promised to make this happen. And yet we don't see that promise comes true in the way that we interpret it, which is also a good word for us. So
for sure.
Any other final thoughts?
No, we're going to see that promise of the Spirit in Joel next week.
And Amos and Obadiah.
Obadiah. That's a good name.
It is a good name.
It is.
Amos is a good name too, though.
Yeah.
I like Joel. I mean, you said Joel, which is probably how it is, probably closer to Hebrew, but Joel. Anyway, the end.
It's good to be back.
It is. We missed you guys last week, and we'll be back next week.
Close.
We're getting really close. Yeah, we're getting really close to the New Testament, and thanks for tuning in.
Should we read through the other scripts? I've got that in my Oxford.
I do, but it's not in their book.
Not in the book. We should do a recap of that.
I don't know what you're talking
like
about.
The Maccabees.
The Apocryphal. Yes. Yeah. I actually thought it'd be really fun to do a week on the Apocrypha.
We might do that.
I don't know how to say that.
I don't think we read through them. I think we just do a recap. Yeah.
The Wisdom of Solomon.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that'd be really interesting. And I've not read through all of them. Esdras, isn't that one?
Yeah, and Judith.
Yeah.
If we do that, we can post a link on the Facebook page and on the
bonus episode.
YouTube.
Baruch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. And we will be back next week to finish up some of the prophetic works. And friends, as we always say, some of this stuff is really complicated, but there's one thing that never is, and it's that Jesus loves you. So we will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.